Good evening, I'm Amirul Aiman. Tonight's top story, Trump unveils major funding for Gaza's reconstruction after a Board of Peace meeting. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. U.S. President Donald Trump announces at the first meeting of his Board of Peace that $7 billion has been pledged by several countries towards the Gaza Reconstruction Fund. Trump says the United States will also contribute an additional $10 billion, though he did not specify how the funds would be used. FIFA is expected to raise $75 million for soccer projects in Gaza, while the United Nations has pledged $2 billion in humanitarian aid. 5 countries, including Indonesia, have also agreed to deploy troops for a proposed international stabilization force, while Egypt and Jordan will train police. Despite the flurry of commitments, the total falls well short of the estimated $70 billion needed to rebuild Gaza after 2 years of war. Key questions also remain, including the disarmament of Hamas, a potential withdrawal of Israeli troops, the final size of the reconstruction fund, and the flow of humanitarian aid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier said there would be no reconstruction without the demilitarization of Gaza. The board was first proposed by Trump in September 2025 to help rebuild Gaza, but its possible expansion has raised concerns it could undermine the United Nations' role in global diplomacy. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says there is no alternative to President Donald Trump's Board of Peace plan for Gaza. He says those involved in the discussions do not want a return to war.
There is no plan B for Gaza. Plan B is going back to war. No one here wants that. Plan A, the only path forward, is one that rebuilds Gaza in a way of enduring and sustainable peace, where everyone can live there side by side with one another and never worry again about returning to conflict, to war, to human suffering, and to destruction.
Meanwhile, Indonesia is set to take on a leading role in the proposed international stabilization force for Gaza by serving as deputy commander of the mission. Major General Jasper Jeffers confirmed that the position was formally offered to Jakarta and now has been accepted. The planned force is expected to comprise around 20,000 troops, supported by a newly established police unit designed to help maintain security and public order. Morocco has also pledged to contribute troops, marking the first confirmed participation by an Arab nation in the proposed mission. That's the headline for tonight. We'll be right back after the break.
Rasai kehebatan sebenar dengan pak sukan Astro. Jabalan dalam setiap perlombaan. Superb. Ketepatan dalam setiap perlawanan. Simply outrageous. Oh my goodness, that was crazy. Kemenangan dalam setiap detik. Home of Sports. Hanya di Astro.
Di sebalik setiap kejayaan, ada visi. Inilah kisah usahawan Bumiputra yang membina jenama, mencipta peluang dan menggerakkan ekonomi negara. Dipacu oleh aspirasi Pelan Transformasi Ekonomi Bumiputra 2035 dengan sokongan ekosistem dan agensi pemacu, mereka melangkah lebih jauh dari pasaran tempatan ke pentas global. Saksikan Putra 35 setiap Isnin jam 10 pagi, eksklusif di Astro AWANI.
Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned Iran it must strike a meaningful agreement within 10 to 15 days or face really bad things. The warning comes amid a major U.S. military buildup in the Middle East, prompting Tehran to threaten retaliation against U.S. bases in the region if attacked.
The renewed threats come just days after the US and Iran held a second round of indirect talks, which were largely described as positive. On Wednesday, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the parties had made good progress in Geneva and agreed on broad guiding principles for a potential deal. Meanwhile, American forces have been ramping up their military presence in the region, including the deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, raising fears of a wider conflict. Tehran's UN mission, in a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, said that it will view US bases as legitimate targets if used for military action, urging the Security Council to condemn recent Trump's threats.
The United States and Indonesia have finalized a reciprocal trade deal that will cut US tariffs on Indonesian imports from 32% to 19%. Indonesia's Senior Economic Minister Airlangga Hartarto and US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer signed the agreement in Washington shortly after President Prabowo Subianto attended President Donald Trump's Board of Peace meeting.
Under the deal, Jakarta will lower barriers on more than 99% of US imports. Jakarta has also agreed to address non-tariff barriers such as licensing and local content rules and to purchase $33 billion worth of US energy, agricultural and aviation goods, including Boeing aircraft. According to Airlangga, Indonesia may also secure exemptions for nearly 1,700 commodities, including palm oil. The deal will take effect 90 days after legal procedures are completed, with both sides set to establish a new council on trade and investment. Indonesia is now the third Southeast Asian nation after Malaysia and Cambodia to finalize a reciprocal trade agreement with Washington since Trump's tariff announcement last April.
Venezuela's acting president Delcy Rodriguez signed an amnesty law on Thursday night after the ruling party-controlled National Assembly approved what lawmakers describe as a step towards national reconciliation. Rodriguez signed the document alongside Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello and her brother, the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez.
Rodriguez added that the law opens a door for Venezuela to reunite and learn to coexist democratically and peacefully. The law was approved after a second debate in the legislature headed by Rodriguez's brother, Jorge Rodriguez. The approved law provides amnesty for involvement in political protests and violent actions which took place during a brief coup in 2002 and demonstrations or elections in certain months of 2004, 2007, 2009, 2013, 2014, 2017, 2019, 2023, 2024, and 2025. People convicted of military rebellion for involvement in events in 2019 are excluded. The law does not detail the exact crimes which would be eligible for amnesty, though a previous draft laid out several, including instigation of illegal activity, resistance to authorities, rebellion, and treason. It also does not return assets of those detained, revoke public office bans given for political reasons, or cancel sanctions against media outlets, as at least one previous draft would have. Rodriguez said a special commission has been appointed to monitor implementation and urged it to move quickly, including by reviewing cases not covered by the amnesty.
Venezuelan opposition politician Juan Pablo Guanipa, a close ally of Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado, has had a house arrest order lifted. This is according to his brother and lawmaker Thomas Guanipa, who told Reuters about the matter.
The move follows the ruling party-controlled legislature's approval on Thursday of a limited amnesty law. Guanipa was imprisoned for more than 8 months on accusations of leading a terrorist plot, which he has denied. Earlier this month, he was freed from jail, then recaptured within hours, speaking to the media in Caracas and meeting supporters. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez, who took power last month after the U.S. ouster of President Nicolas Maduro, bowed to Trump administration demands on oil sales and has released hundreds of people who human rights groups classify as political prisoners as ties between the two countries begin to normalize. Venezuela's government has long denied holding political prisoners, saying those in custody have committed crimes.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi pledges to break with excessive fiscal austerity and boost long-term investment through a multi-year budget framework. This underlines her administration's commitment to revitalizing the economy.
Takaichi's remarks underscore a central financial risk as her flagship spending plan needs to revive the world's fourth largest economy without sparking debt jitters that could push the yen and government bonds into another slide. In a policy speech to Parliament, Takaichi repeated her resolve to pursue responsible, proactive fiscal policy aimed at increasing investment in areas like artificial intelligence, chips, and shipbuilding to lift Japan's potential growth. She added that Japan should not hesitate to increase spending to support private investment. Known as an advocate of loose fiscal and monetary policy, Takaichi led her ruling party to a landslide victory in the general election on February 8th, with a pledge to boost spending and suspend by 2 years a consumption tax on food. Her calls for big spending and tax cuts sparked a sell-off in government bonds and the yen late last year, as investors fretted over how Japan, laboring under the developed world's highest debt burden, would fund her big spending plans.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi warns that China's growing pressure poses a serious challenge to regional stability and pledges a sweeping overhaul of Japan's defense strategy. In her first address to Parliament since securing a landslide victory in the lower house, she says Japan now faces its most severe security environment since the Second World War. She pointed to China's military expansion and its deepening ties with Russia, as well as North Korea's advancing nuclear and missile capabilities. Takaichi confirmed that Japan's three core security documents will be revised this year, with defense spending is set to double to 2% of gross domestic product by March. She also intends to ease restrictions on military exports. The move is designed to expand overseas sales and strengthen Japan's domestic defense industry. The United States has paid about $160 million of the more than $4 billion it owes the United Nations. The shortfall comes as President Donald Trump's administration has questioned its commitment to the UN, cutting funding and withholding mandatory payments to regular and peacekeeping budgets. Despite that, Trump appeared to back UN funding during the inaugural meeting of his Board of Peace in Washington.
We're going to be working with the United Nations very closely. We're going to bring them back. I think the United Nations has great potential, really great potential. It has not lived up to potential.
The US, the largest contributor to the UN, owes about $2.2 billion to the regular budget, more than 95% of global arrears. It also owes another $2.4 billion for peacekeeping and $43 million for UN tribunals. Unpaid dues have forced the UN to slash its spending and reduce its services. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned last month that the body faces an imminent financial collapse unless member states pay their dues or financial rules are reformed. That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Amirul Aiman. Thank you for watching. Good night.